When it comes to Sea of Thieves, the most satisfying way to make money is by taking it from other pirates. There's only one problem: said pirates are not usually willing to just hand it over to you, bringing us to the solution: player versus player combat. Now, you might assume that PvP is as simple an affair as accelerating a piece of lead towards the face of your opponent, but you'd be wrong. Sea of Thieves is a social sandbox, and with that in mind, PvP can come in a lot of different facets, from sneaky rowboat heists to political negotiations, and of course the classic open combat. We will be exploring all of this and more because our goal is to make 1 million gold entirely by fighting other players, all the while playing on a brand new character. And gamers, whatever you think how bad this is gonna be, trust me when I say that, it's gonna get so much worse. But just like any good story, this one starts at the beginning. Without a single coin in my pocket, my first objective was clear: acquire 20,000 gold in order to purchase a Reaper Emissary flag license. Arguably the best emissary in the game period, but especially for a challenge, because with a Grade 5 emissary, everything we sell is going to grant us 2.5 times its original value in gold and reputation. But as an added benefit, we can also see other emissaries on the map. And if the only way we can make money is by taking it from others, this is going to be a crucial part of the puzzle. How do we get the flag to Grade 5? I'm gonna show you a bit of a trick for that once we purchase the license. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, because I was a far cry away from being able to do that. Finding other boats to fight is a surprisingly difficult thing to achieve without that emissary flag, so other than sailing around aimlessly, there wasn't a heck of a lot I could do. Though there was one indicator I could use. Whilst Reapers are the only ones who are always marked on the map for everyone to see, any and all emissaries are represented on their respective emissary table. So by simply going to an outpost, I could make sure that there were, like, you know, people doing stuff on my server. And if there weren't, I could just use the diving function to get onto a different one. And as it just so happened, 2 Order of Souls emissaries were present. Emissaries tend to have more treasure on board than random non-emissary boats, because they need to hold onto it in order to level up their flag, making them more valuable targets. And those being of the Order of Souls variety was very lucky, since I had a hunch on where I could find those ships specifically. Because I know that this faction hugely benefits from grinding in the Devil's Roar, and that is exactly where I decided to head towards, though somebody else caught my eye on my way to that region. I really hope I'm right about the Order of Souls guy. Oh! Boat! There's a boat! Oh my god, signs of life! Ladies and gentlemen, we found our first target, and here we stumble upon one of the very skittish variety. This gamer was intent on not giving up his loot, trying to run away at all cost. Now, he did have a skelly ship spawn on him completely at random, and some of you might think that this is a good thing, but it's actually not. Because that stupid skelly ship made it more difficult for me to make maneuvers without crashing into it, and let's just say that it was not landing enough shots to make up for that inconvenience, meaning I had no choice but to sink it. Eventually, I found an opportunity to fire out of the cannon and then use my grapple gun in order to get on his boat, after which I had no trouble taking him out, and of course he had a fitting response to what just transpired. He scuttled immediately, what the hell? Okay. Crazy to me some people play like that. They're like, the moment they die, immediately scuttling shit. That's all you had? You ran away for 2 fish? Bro had 2 fish and ran away. Actually, it was 3 fish. Now, I'm not gonna pretend to know what possesses somebody to waste their time trying to flee with poverty amounts of loot, but alas, this was our haul, and after handing it in at the Reaper's hideout, it made us a whole 15,570 golds. And even that is inflating the numbers. 4,500 of those coins were granted to me as part of the free plunder pass, which I know I didn't earn via PvP, but it's too much of a headache to try and keep track of, so I'm just gonna let that slide. It only amounts to a few thousand gold at the end anyway, and don't forget, we need a whole million. But now that this was taken care of, it was time to go back to hunting those Order of Souls emissaries I spotted on the table. And guess what? I was absolutely right about them hiding in the Roar. Except this wasn't the emissary I was hoping to find, for this was a gold hoarder. I'm not gonna be picky about that right now. Loot is loot at the end of the day, so obviously I would try to sink them, with the emphasis being on try, because guess what? I got krakened. My golden opportunity of finally catching somebody who might actually have a sizable amount of loot was ripped away, for I could not continue to pursue them until I had dealt with the Kraken. I wish I could say that this was the second and last time that an emergent encounter would get in the way of me chasing a boat, but unfortunately that would be a lie. Though in a hilarious twist that I could have never seen coming, that boat did not run away. Yeah, they just ran their vessel into the next island, allowing me to light them up completely for free. I feel a little bit like a bully, but like, he had every chance to get away and just decided not to take it down. That's a second kill. What the hell? Okay, what are we looking at? 2 whole pieces of treasure! Yeah, okay, an emissary flag makes it more likely that they have loot, but that doesn't mean that they always do. The one item they held onto sold for a whopping 1200 gold, but thankfully, the emissary flag itself can be sold, and that granted me a much more satisfying payout of 3904 gold pieces. Technically, I now had the 20,000 gold necessary to buy that emissary flag license, but since over a fourth of that came from the plunder pass rather than from PvP, I decided to go for at least one more sync before purchasing it, just to stay in the spirit of the challenge. Now I did eventually spot the Order of Souls emissary I was hunting this entire time, but having learned from the last encounter, I decided to not attack them immediately. Whatever they were doing at that island, I'd rather they finish it so that they have more treasure for me to steal, but once their flag looked big and juicy, it was time to approach. Where every fight before this was an absolute pushover, this time I had to face a duo, one that was dangerously accurate, at one point even sending me to the ferry with a well-placed sniper shot. Incidentally, that was actually a good thing for me. Let me explain. Them immediately getting the upper hand makes it more likely that they think they can win, and if they think they can win, that means they have no reason to run away. All I had to do now was show them how wrong they were, but truthfully, I'm not good enough at PvP to make this fight look easy. Hello there, skelly ship. I only got the upper hand once I managed to take down their mast, at which point it was all rudimentary. I just had to circle around their boat and continuously pop holes into their vessel until the water that's coming in overwhelms their ability to bucket it back out. By the way, Rare, I absolutely need you to remove these annoying pop-ups from my screen when I'm fighting another ship. Words cannot describe how infuriating it is to not see whether or not my dang cannon is actually loaded because of that huge banner. Things only got worse for me when they replied in kind, taking down my mast, and with that, my mobility. Now here's a pro tip for you guys. If your wheel is too broken to stop yourself from spinning, anchoring at just the right time to guarantee a cannon angle is going to be your better bet. By continuously spinning around, you are not only depriving yourself of the ability to fire at them, but you're also giving them every opportunity to litter your boat in holes from every possible angle. And because they didn't know that tip, I came out on top and sank their vessel. Though that didn't stop them from being insanely annoying even without their ship. I actually had to jump into the water just to get rid of the last guy, but at the end, their Grade 5 emissary flag was mine. That's right, they didn't actually have a single piece of loot on their boat, really putting a damper on my whole emissaries are more likely to hold treasure spiel. But hey, 10,000 gold is nothing to sneeze at, and with that, we were finally able to afford our flag. After 2.5 hours of fighting boats with next to no treasure on board, we could proudly become a Reaper's Bones emissary, knowing that every coin we spent on this privilege was earned by PvP. Leaving only one task for us to complete, leveling it up to Grade 5. And for that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to bestow upon you a secret technique. Lo and behold, chat room. Emissary Grade 4. Basically, by leaving the render distance of an island, you can force the spawns to reset. And if the spawns reset, there's always a chance for there to be a captain. And for some reason, digging up captain's orders gives a lot of emissary value towards Reaper. Yep, you heard me right. For the low price of 2 skeleton captains, you too can get a Grade 5 Reaper's Bones emissary flag. Just make sure you pick up the captain's orders after defeating it to dig up the treasure and watch your levels rise. With that achieved, we can just use a gold hoarder digging voyage to hop from server to server, since that is the fastest voyage to complete, and only by completing the voyage do you avoid getting a cooldown on diving. And without even visiting an outpost to look at the tables, we can immediately see on our map if there are any emissaries. Though what we ended up finding didn't even require any of that fancy nonsense, because we stumbled upon an active Fort of the Damned. At the time of recording, the only world event in the game that can be activated by players, this was a huge opportunity to get tons and tons of treasure. The only problem, I actually had to wait for them to complete it before I could attack them, because as per the rules, I am allowed to complete PvE events, but I am not allowed to sell any treasure I get as a result of it. But thankfully, there were other things I could do to pass the time. Oh, wait, what? Wait, what? We gotta intercept that. Gamers, if there's a piece of treasure that is marked on the map, chances are it's going to be worth pursuing. This one specifically is a Skull of the Banished. Now, I didn't remember how much it sells for, but I did know that this was not the only item you get from the voyage that drops it. We just found a massive opportunity to catch a loot piñata before they can sell their goods, and you know what? I think I'm just gonna let this one play out. Greetings, gentlemen. Hello there. What's good? How you doing? That's interesting. Got a lot of loot here. I would like to have that loot. Good job, boys. Yeah, this was like taking candy from a child. Besides the fact that using a bone caller to summon skeleton minions was absolute overkill for these guys, I decided to toss the loot overboard and have them be on their merry way, rather than trying to sink them. I mean, my goal is to make $1 million, not to sink as many boats as possible, and since the skull is marked on the map, I could also pinpoint the exact location of where I dropped the goods off. Now obviously, one does not simply lose all of their treasure without trying to get it back, but needless to say that scaring these guys off was not all that difficult. On my way to Reaper's Hideout, I also spotted the crew at the FOTD of the Damned, and much to my delight there was another sloop, so at most another 2 pirates I had to defeat to get that loot. Which is actually completely wrong, because that other ship I just robbed, yeah, they decide to attack the FOTD of the Damned gamers because they just completed it. As much as I would love to join the tussle immediately, first I had to cash in my goods. Oh yeah! That's what I'm talking about, baby! Oh, that's another 20k in total, holy crap. Dude, how is everything from this, like, so high value? It's like I stole this from a baby and I'm getting hugely rewarded for it. Dude, this was so worth it. This one single hole granted me over 150,000 gold in one fell swoop. I was riding the high wave, but the bad news is that in the time it took me to sell my goods, one of the sloops had won, and sadly for me, the winner was a bit more competent than I would have liked. Now I could give you a highlight montage of all the times I killed these guys whilst waiting for the fire I started to cause damage to the ship, but really, there's only one moment in this entire exchange that matters, and it's this one. At this very moment, I hit a left click in order to pick up the blunderbombs so that I could knock them off their own boat, but unfortunately I did that a little too quickly, causing the game to not recognize the input, which led me to eventually getting diced. And that's all the time these guys needed to try and get away. Now it was obvious that this crew was not stupid. They made attempts to board my vessel so that they could slow me down with an anchor drop, and they probably knew that allowing me to get anywhere near them would cause them a lot of problems. I mean, I did just spend minutes turning these guys into minced meat on their own boat, but since they can't sell the loot as long as I'm chasing them, they really didn't have much of a choice but to turn and fight me, which is when this happened. Again? Ladies and gentlemen, your eyes do not deceive you, I just got krakened again. Now if you've never been in a 2v1 whilst on the receiving end of a kraken attack, allow me to describe what this feels like. Not very good. Besides being stuck in place and needing to take care of the tentacles, I also had to fend off a persistent boarder, all the while not being able to do a dang thing about the cannon fire that the other guy bestowed upon me. In short, this was a living nightmare. Now despite all the profanity that undoubtedly left my cake hole during this encounter, I did not want these guys to know how flustered I was. I was absolutely giving them a run for their money. No matter how much obnoxious BS they were throwing at me, I kept pummeling the boat and them along with it. It was only in one brief moment where the game definitely worked as intended and absolutely did not fail to register my sword swing that I finally perished. Obviously, I had no problem getting rid of the guy once I respawned, but it dawned on me that this dude had thrown every single one of my storage crates overboard, really putting the rat in pirate. Realistically, there is no way I win this fight now. I didn't have any blunderbombs to get them off my ladders, and only a very limited amount of cannonballs to actually sink their ship, but that does not mean that they have to know that. Listen, part of the rule set is that I am allowed to intimidate other pirates into giving up their treasure, and after having been an absolute thorn in their side for the past like 30 minutes, I decided to go for a bit of a gamble. Maybe we can come to an agreement over here. So I decided to make an offer. I will let them sell all of their treasure. In return, I'm going to sink their ship and take their emissary flag. And thankfully for me, he absolutely jumped at the opportunity to get me off their tail. This seemed like a best case scenario because I'm not allowed to join an alliance as part of the rules, and if we continued that fight, I would eventually lose just due to a lack of supplies. I was insanely lucky that they didn't know that, so at the end, I honored my promise and was awarded a grade 5 emissary flag. But just to be sure that me selling this flag was within the spirit of the challenge, I did decide to start a poll for the voices in my head to vote on whether or not they felt like I had earned the right to sell this. Ultimately, it did come as a result of PvP, and even though it didn't feel like a complete victory, the voices agreed that selling it was fair game, adding another 24,500 gold to my fortune. Now, not every PvP encounter was memorable because of how difficult the fight was. Some of them were memorable because of the players I met. Take this guy at Mermaid's Hideaway, for example. I was stalking him on the map for absolute ages with him not moving an inch, and when I finally rocked up to sink him, he just kind of stared at me in disbelief. I know, man. Me too.
Why, though?
Honestly, I just got shit on and I just felt like shitting on somebody else.
Oh.
I'm so sorry. Take this mango. Oh, wait, take this mango. Please take the... It's the mango friendship. Please take this... Please, I'm gonna feel so horrible if you don't take this mango.
I feel horrible.
No! Honestly, he kind of had a point, but that didn't stop me from killing him. Nobody declines the mango of friendship. Now, he only had a few items on board, but this great 3 emissary flags sold for a respectable 16,000 gold, so I couldn't complain. But a couple of dives later, I stumbled upon a very active server, and one that would allow me to redeem myself for that failed heist. And that's right, we got another FOTD of the damned, and this time, I would be a lot more sneaky about it. Not that the rest of the server had any intention of doing so. What felt like the entire population of the Sea of Thieves ended up converging on this fort, and I arrived just as the dust settled, hopping out of my rowboat to take a gander at the war zone just to spot not 1, but 3 chests of legends. That in itself would not be that big of a deal, wasn't it for the fact that you only get 1 of these per completion of the FOTD of the damned. You catch my drift? Somebody was actually stacking this world event, meaning there's a disgusting amount of loot on the line right here. I decided to hide the 1 chest of legends I grabbed before approaching the winner's boat with my keg rowboat, igniting it after docking and then immediately getting so tornadoed. But that's okay, it would take them a long time to move all the treasure onto their vessel, and I was not the only one that knew this pile of loot existed. To say that I was nervous about messing this up was an understatement. My attempt of shooting myself onto the fort failed miserably, with me bouncing off of it and breaking my ankles. But little did I know that broken bones would be the least of my problems. Everything that could have gone wrong just went wrong. What? What just happened? What just happened, dear past me, was that one of these rats decided to swim a stronghold gunpowder keg all the way to my ship. My boat was spinning, wheel broken, mast down, leaking out of every corner, meaning it did not take a lot to bring the final nail into my coffin. But there was too much on the line for me to just not come back, even if I just lost all of my supplies. Half this server was fighting over this fort with no end to this war in sight, but before I could commit to any one strategy, I needed intel. I had to find out not only how much of the loot was left on the island, but also which of these boats was holding onto the rest of it. Now, this pile of trinkets might not look like much to you if you haven't played a lot of Sea of Thieves, but each of these items is very valuable, especially the skulls. So much so that I decided to take some of them in order to secure them for myself, but I couldn't find a good opportunity to scout either of these boats for the remaining treasure. Knowing that these guys were in a bit of a stalemate, I figured that the best course of action was to secure my slice of the pie. 1 chest of legends and 2 chests of trinkets were plenty to get away with, and I had every intention of doing so. Okay, what did we manage to secure though? Oh, okay. Now we just need a flag. So we do Reaper's Hideout, Twin Groves to level up our flag, and then we sell our stuff. And I hope that they can just keep being cringe and fight each other. I'm gonna be honest, I was not a fan of their cowardly keg strategies, which is a bit ironic if you consider that I was the rat that came over on a rowboat. But for now, I followed the plan and raised an emissary flag at Reaper's Hideout before sailing to Twin Groves in order to level it up. Unfortunately, I just couldn't get a second skeleton captain to spawn in order to secure that final grade, so rather than risking to miss out on the rest of the loot, I decided to sell whatever I had at grade 4, still giving me a 100% bonus. I now had over 200,000 gold at my disposal, and those of you who read the rule set carefully might have seen that there is a rule that allows me to spend some of it. That's right, for the cost of 100,000 gold, I am allowed to hire a friend to help me with a heist. The price being a 10th of the entire amount I need to earn makes this a pretty high risk proposition, because if the heist itself does not earn at least that much, I might actually lose money on the whole thing. But before my duo could even load into the lobby... I hate this! You absolute cowards! Fight me like a man! I'm so tired of your stupid keg plays! They bring another keg. You rat! I swear, these guys have one trick and they stick by it. In an ironic twist of fate, my duo, being the one and only Toxie Sinclair, only managed to load onto my vessel as it sank. And as cathartic as it was to finally get to shove some lead down these guys' hatch, being the cowards that they are, of course they left before we were able to board them. Now this is exactly why I said that this was a risky plan. Whether or not we sell anything, I still had to pay 100,000 gold for Toxie showing up, and she's not allowed to help me with anything other than the thing I hired her to do, this being the Fort of the Damned heist. At the very least, we could go back to the now vacant fort to pick up some of the scraps, and with any luck, the treasure we collect might get me close to breaking even. Of course, we first had to raise a new flag and then level it up again, but guess what? As fate would have it, a certain somebody decided to raise a Reaper emissary of their own, and guess what they brought?
Oh, I just got kegged.
Are you serious?
Can you get back to the ship?
I'm on my way. I swear, these guys have one move and one move only. Like, I'm not even kidding. Rather than seizing the opportunity to try and finish us via cannon fire, these absolute bellends decide to try and swim another keg to us. I was so absolutely sick and tired of these guys, but if there was a chance that they still had 3 FOTD of the damned worth of loot on their boat, we would have no choice but to pursue them, even if that meant sailing right into a skeleton fleet. And when I say into, I mean that kind of literally. With us, the rats, the skelly ships, and another boat joining the fray, this was bound to be a chaotic encounter. Needless to say that they had absolutely no interest in actual naval combat, or really combat of any nature, because it seemed like they had finally run out of kegs. And as if that couldn't get any more embarrassing for them, they did the absolute rattiest thing you could imagine. They started dropping their loot overboard. Now here's what's funny about that. I'm fairly certain that these guys must have the 2 remaining chests of legends on board, and since each of these is worth about 8,000 gold without an emissary, that's a pretty big deal. But what they didn't seem to have known was that all the gems and skulls they just tossed overboard cumulatively were valued at tens of thousands of gold. So what do you think I decided to do? Chase these guys down for my own ego just to finally get to sink their ship after all the BS I had to endure at their hands? Hell no! I decided to cash in, my brother and Flameheart. These guys just dumped 155,000 gold overboard just because they were too scared to fight us outright. At the end of the day, the one thing I really care about is making a profit, and even with the 100,000 gold I had to pay for Toxic's help, I was still solidly in the greens. At this point, I decided it was time to change my approach. I could have saved myself all the trouble of fighting these guys if I hadn't messed up being stealthy, and as such, I was determined to do better next time. Right after spending 100,000 gold on a cannon flare as payment for employing Toxic's help. I mean, technically, it was like 110k, but consider the rest of it an equalizer for the plunder pass money the game kept giving me. But right after that, it was time to find a target, and it didn't take long for me to stumble upon a very interesting server. A sloop on its way to a just completed fort with another crew currently holding onto a skull of the banished. The possibility for profit was high, and even though I was far from warmed up, it turned out that I didn't need to be, because these guys brought all the heat with a black powder barrel on board. They might have stopped me from blowing it up the first time, but I would not allow that to happen again, for a good captain always goes down with a vessel, and sometimes an enemy does as well. I'm just not gonna question why that was the only thing on their boat, but what I was questioning was why the heck the gate to their vault was still closed. I guess that explains why they didn't have any treasure, but without a key, the same would apply to me, besides a few skulls that just so happened to lay around the fort, which, desperate as I am, I did decide to pocket. Now, I was thinking about robbing that other boat for the skull of the banished, but when I saw that they were trying to sell it at an outpost, I kind of felt bad for them. The little good guy in me, like, wants to help them, so they don't keep wasting their time doing voyages and not know where to sell stuff. I'm not sure they want my help. Do you guys not know where to sell that skull? I was just trying to help you with that. Ow. Okay, that's what I get for trying to be nice. I was just trying to tell you when to sell that skull.
What? My English is bad. Play a moment, please.
What language do you speak? Now, what happened next is not something I'm necessarily proud of, but they speak Elven. And as it just so happens, I too speak Elven, meaning I absolutely decided to use my multilingual advantage to try and sell myself as a certified good guy. I mean, one thing was for certain, they could sink me in a heartbeat if they wanted to, but it appeared that they felt some kind of kinship with me for sharing their language. I had bought myself some valuable time as I was trying to figure out how to get out of this, and ideally how to get out of it with more treasure than I started. I mean, they did have the key to the fort on their ship, but I couldn't help noticing that I was no longer the captain of my own vessel. These guys had taken full control of the situation, laying claim to my ship while also holding me hostage after having flexed their gold PvP curses. Oh, you know, the cosmetic you can only unlock by reaching level 1000 in a PvP faction, and they did it twice. The only reason they even entertained the idea of keeping me around, besides a perceived sense of kinship I suppose, was that they wanted to grind out an achievement that requires shooting chain shots at enemy vessels. I was completely and utterly at their mercy. But they weren't completely heartless. I mean, sure, I didn't even get to touch any of the loot inside the vault, but they did put some treasure on my boat, which I can only assume they collected off a skeleton ship. This was like some kind of reverse muggery in a way, but what they decided to do once they were done, I never could have anticipated.
You won. We will go now. See ya.
Wait, what? But you can't do that. You can't do that. Allow me to fight one of you guys for it. Allow me to have a duel with one of you.
Okay, come on.
I cannot believe they're about to let me have it. I will not accept this. I will not accept the freebie. Your eyes do not deceive you. They were literally about to head out and leave all the treasure behind. To think that all of this only happened because my intention was to help rather than to fight was very fitting, but still, this is a PvP challenge, and by God, I'm going to earn that loot. I can't shoot. Oh, in the water. Don't get stunned.
Oops.
That was my last one. Oh shit, GG's. Hook, line, and sinker. Now, obviously, I cannot guarantee that bro was not going easy on me. For me personally, this was a very difficult fight, and one that I only earned by a set of extremely specific circumstances that led me to this very moment. This is one of the many situations that make PvP so incredibly unique in Sea of Thieves. It's not always just shooting on sight, even though that is how this whole thing began. It's these kinds of interactions why I love this game. And with this massive loot hole in Tau, I was free to head to Reaper's hideout and cash in my rewards. Only after leaving did I notice that the gold I made from that treasure was a lot more than I would have anticipated though. Wait, did I sell this during Gold Rush? Did anyone pay attention? It was Gold Rush! Oh my god. The cough was 30k instead of 20k. For those of you unaware, Gold Rush is a 1 hour window that happens twice every day where you get a 50% bonus on every item you sell. And I mean, I can't make this up. I left Reaper's hideout perfectly at 1 minute past the end of that window. At that very moment, I felt like the luckiest pirate on the 7 seas. So much so that when I spotted a Fort of Fortune, I had no choice but to try my luck to see if I could go 2 for 2. So after hiding my ship behind a rock and hopping into my rowboat, I went for the far journey over to this fort, where I would nonchalantly dock my rowie on their boat and climb up the ladder of the crow's nest as if I owned the place. I mean, hey, I am the luckiest pirate around, so what's the worst that could happen? And the luck did continue, because not only am I not going to bore you with the like 20 minutes I sat in this crow's nest doing absolutely nothing, but when the time came to get the treasure on board, these guys loaded something up that they really shouldn't have. Oh my god, they brought a keg. It's an Athena keg. Did you put it below deck? Oh, sweet summer child. There's multiple kegs on the boat now. Did they move all that treasure below deck? Wait, what? Am I high? Why are they moving all that treasure below deck? Oh no. Oh no. Shoot at it! Please don't hit! Please don't hit! Shoot back at them! Uh-oh. It was an actual divine miracle brought upon the hands of luck that blessed me that this cannon fire did not ignite any of the kegs. But there was a bit of a problem. My original plan was to let them sail all the way to Reaper's hideout before revealing myself and using their own kegs against them. I mean, they are Reaper emissaries after all, and that would save me the trip to collect the loot. But now it appeared that they were on their way to a Reaper fort. And gamers, these forts are protected by a phantom fleet which will, without the shadow of a doubt, blow up the kegs before they can make landfall. I had no choice but to anchor them as soon as I got close enough to an island where I could save the treasure after sinking them. Bro literally made no attempt to stop me as what is arguably the most unaware pirate legend I have ever seen, but little did I know that I was the one lacking awareness. Wait, what? Where's the treasure? Wait, what? Where'd they put all the loot? Where's the other player? Oh my god. The rowie! That's where they put all the treasure! Yup, in a hilarious turn of events, these guys used my own rowboat to offload the treasure without me noticing. Obviously, I rushed on over to return to my ship and sailed to Reaper's hideout because, I mean, surely that's where they would want to sell it since they are a Reaper emissary as well, right? But nope, there was no sign of either the treasure nor the rowboat, meaning, and I can't believe this just happened, I got completely and utterly outplayed. Naturally, that hurt my ego a lot. The only reason I missed out on that heist was because of me getting greedy, so after dropping my emissary flag, I decided to give the whole sneaking thing one more shot, just to kind of show you guys what this is actually supposed to look like. So I hide my boat behind a rock, swim all the way to the fort without a rowboat this time, and wait for the perfect opportunity to sneak on their vessel. There I simply wait for them to complete the event, and would you look at that, one of them brought the most valuable item in the vault right to my doorstep. So of course I jumped down, picked up the goods, and swam away as if I was never there in the first place. This, my friends, is a lesson in humility. But humility is not how I'm going to make 1,000,000 gold, so to make up for that embarrassment I just endured, I vowed to myself that I would finish my challenge with a bang. What I was looking for is not a Fort of the Damned or a Fort of Fortune, but a Mega Stash. What is a Mega Stash? Oh, just a funny little event that Rare sometimes likes to host where there is a random chance that they replace the loot of a specific event with, you know, a Mega Stash. Now, I didn't know how much one of these would sell for if I was able to get my hands on it, but I did know that it would be a lot. And with me being 200,000 gold away from completing the run, there was no better time than now to try and get it. The only problem? You don't actually know if it's a Mega Stash until you complete the event. At the time of recording, Mega Stashes were only available at Reaper Forts, and as such, this is what I would focus on. Just that my luck had finally run out and I could not find anyone completing them. They would either despawn right in front of my face, people arbitrarily decide to sail away from them after starting the event, or when I did find one, it was not a Mega Stash. Yeah, the devs may have boarded up the top so you can't look into the vault, but all it takes is a keg to briefly take a peek inside. I was so desperate that when I finally found a Reaper Fort that was actually being completed, I had no choice but to call for some help.
What up?
Good day, sir.
Dude, today's been great.
It's been 3 hours of server hopping and forts disappearing in front of my very face repeatedly.
I think I've stolen 3 stashes today.
Today?
Yep, in 3 hours.
Unfortunately for me, the only one available at the time was Sigi. I know the point of the buddy system is to get somebody competent, but everyone I knew was currently playing Orc Raiders, so yeah, this was gonna be as good as it gets. Which was certainly a problem, because things went from bad to worse when a galleon decided to join the fight for the fort. Naturally, we got the hell out of Dodge, but just as we sailed away, a random skelly sloop appeared. This was great because at the time, these things were guaranteed to carry black powder barrels, so Sigi decided to yoink that whilst I went to hide our ship. This, my friends, was our win condition. We actually lost sight of the galleon for a bit when we began rowing towards the fort, deciding to take a little break a ways away from it as not spook these gamers in case we were caught. I mean, hey, if the galleon didn't want this fort after all, we'll take it. This keg would see some action one way or another because the sloop was on the run, and obviously, we would not let that happen. I told Siggy to go for a swim just in the nick of time. The sloop was lighting me up, completely unaware that he was about to get on board. While he was fending them off, I had all the time in the world to get the payload on there, and just to make sure they can't defuse it, naturally, I decided to go down along with it. One of us had to bring the boat back anyway, so if I can do that whilst also guaranteeing their demise, this was an absolute no-brainer. Though there were some bad news once I arrived at the fort. Did you get a look if they have any treasure on board or whatever?
They have a little bit of a thing.
Oh my, no, they dove to that!
Oh my god, you're right. They dove.
I hate this.
Yeah, they dove to it.
Ignoring the galleon that was about to light us up, there were 3 different types of Reaper Forts available during that season. Regular world events, Mega Stashes, and raids. And you guessed it, we just got our hands on the raid version, which is the absolute worst kind of Reaper Fort. Not that this will be our main concern, because the galleon was here, and in a very unconventional turn of events, Siggy insisted on firing me over there. Now you might notice that whilst I was dancing for my life, there was a distinct lack of cannon fire directed at this galleon. I could only dance for so long, and when I came back to a boat, we were already neck deep in trouble, with one of them having boarded us and our vessel completely immobilized. Ladies and gentlemen, Siggy had just cost me 100,000 gold with absolutely nothing to show for it. But we weren't out of options. Since there were many more contested Reaper Forts over on Siggy's home turf, we decided to check out his servers instead of mine. The search for a Mega Stash continued with the occasional tussle, but I gotta be honest with you guys, I was 4 hours deep looking for something that, by definition, is meant to be a rare occurrence. And after how much we got schooled by that galleon, I was almost ready to give up. Let's dive again.
Well, actually, if you look here.
Oh.
Look up here.
Wait a second. Oh, okay.
And if they're still here and there's a world event up, there's a high chance that it's a stash.
Why would they have a PvP flag though? Oh, it's a guild emissary. Oh. It's a galleon. Oh.
All right, so last galleon fight, what did we learn?
Never listen to you saying get on ever again. His keen eye had become a valuable asset. Guild emissaries only become visible after hitting grade 5 on their flag, and if that one forward was enough to make that happen, it more than certainly could be a Mega Stash. Of course, there was always the chance that they didn't begin the event at grade 1, but that was still our best bet, so here we go, Galleon round number 2. While Siggy had no trouble getting on to drop the anchor, he did find himself getting sliced up basically immediately, so now it was my turn to get on over there to keep that anchor down. Things were going a lot better this time around. The cannonballs were flying through the air as I made an attempt to distract the crew. Even when I eventually found myself sliced to bits, I had a good feeling that this time we will be able to give them a run for their money.
Hey, why you guys are coming after me?
Why are we coming after you guys? You got treasure. I want the treasure.
Buddy, find your steepers.
Well, I'm about to find it, so...
Good luck.
But luck was not something I would rely on any longer. With our roles this time properly distributed, Siggy was giving them hell on deck with me laying into their massive vessel. The galleon was set ablaze whilst leaking out of every corner, and in due time, victory was ours. Truthfully, this was more of a cathartic experience than anything else. I'd actually lost hope in finding a mega stash, but being able to redeem ourselves by actually winning a galley fight made me feel a bit better about myself. That's to say, that is how I felt initially, until I got to look at the goods. Oh my god, this is a mega stash. What the? That's 3 chests of fortune.
Yes, sir.
Oh my god, you redeemed yourself.
Yeah,
Holy crap.
I guess I did.
They didn't even pick up the Wraith Cannonballs. They're still in here.
You're kidding.
They're still...
Oh,
Here, take
no.
one, take one. Ladies and gentlemen, we had finally done it, leaving only one question to answer. How much is a mega stash worth? Well, considering it took us a decent amount of time just to sell all the goods, you can be certain it was a pretty penny. In fact, we actually reached our 1 million goal halfway through the selling process. So, what is our final tally for the challenge? Almost 1.5 million golds. 800,000 coins as a reward for one event. One sink, and that without Gold Rush. Meaning, even after deducting another 100,000 gold for Siggy's service, we still had more than enough to call this challenge complete. But hey, if you want to see me attempt another challenge run, what about you check out my attempt to become a pirate legend without fighting? I had to resort to a lot of cheesy tricks to make that happen, so if you want to watch me suffer, make sure to click the card on screen right now. But until then, thank you everybody so much for watching. I hope you guys have a day filled with the richest on the sea. And until next time, peace.